Well, welcome back to our series on the intersection of passion and portfolios. I'm Dittrich with Altan Insights, and we are lucky to be joined today by Buster Scher. Buster is the founder of Hoops Nation, Card Nation, host of the Buster Show podcast, and all-around alt assets connoisseur. So we're lucky to have him with us today, and the perfect guest for this topic. Thanks for joining us, Buster.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me, how did you get started down the collectibles alts rabbit hole?
So the collectibles rabbit hole was just from baseball cards, like most people. When I was 8, 9 years old, I just collected the Yankees because I loved Jeter and Cano and Posada and Pettit and Mariano, the core four, and those guys. And my first year of being a sports fan in New York, the Yankees won the World Series, and then the Giants won the Super Bowl the year after. So it was pretty good. The Knicks were decent at that time too. Not great, but a couple of years after they got Melo, and that was a whole amazing thing. And I had some moments that really made me fall in love with sports, around the Knicks. And then when baseball got a little bit too slow for me, and I started playing basketball, got into basketball cards, and then basketball cards opened up sort of the money facet to it, where I realized that people were actually buying, selling, and trading. And at that time, the market made no sense. Like oftentimes people can feel about that now, but an Andrew Wiggins first year rookie auto was more than a Michael Jordan auto in some cases, and that just makes no sense. So that's what really made me dive into the financial side of it. And then 3 years ago, when I started making money, I started learning about everything else, because I do honestly believe that it's very hard to be motivated enough to be educated unless you've skin in the game. And that's why I love fractional platforms, because it makes you feel like you have skin in the game, and you do, but it makes you feel like that, which is really the thing that matters. Because I think the beautiful thing about collectibles as a whole is not the money, because you're not going to make a fortune in collectibles if you're just doing it for fun. But it is a window to open up like self-education in a way that I think there's nothing else in the world that does that from a history standpoint, from a sports standpoint, and everything else. That's how I got, sort of immersed into it. And now I'm a mess. I'm in like 55 different like niches, and I jump from thing to thing. Like I started in basketball cards, and I jumped to like historical cards, then I jumped to historical signatures and autographs, bought everything I could ever want, like Lincoln, Washington, Obama, all the GOATs in my opinion. And then I more in cards, more historical stuff. Then I dove into tickets, bought like a few hundred tickets. I have a ton like probably 100 graded tickets of everything from historical events to concerts to sports. Then I dove into graded coins, and I now have this huge ancient Roman, Greek, and American US coin collection. Then I went deep into silver, and then I started buying tons of silver. And obviously being in crypto and NFTs this entire time, I think they all sort of intersect. But yeah, through and through, basketball cards have kept me stable.
Makes sense. In all of those categories, though they're all niche in their own way, your approach in each one can kind of inform or improve your approach in another one, right? And
Sure.
Some of the characteristics, some of the criteria are more or less similar. You're just applying it to a slightly different world. It takes education.
100%. Yeah, it's really funny, man. But I've definitely learned a lot. And you learn. There's so many great lessons that collectibles teach you, bankroll management and other things that I had no, knowledge on or skill at any of those things. I always looked at it from, if there's a great investment, I'm gonna do it. And hopefully, everybody's being responsible with their stuff, but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
You mentioned the line, if it's a great investment, I'm going to do it, and certainly you built this great allocation to these collectible, asset classes. How do you kind of think about, sizing that, I guess, versus maybe more traditional investments that you might have, whether those are in in businesses or more traditional kind of investment vehicles?
Look, right. I think it's different for everybody. I'm 21 years old. I can take 100% loss. I can lose all my net worth and I'm fine. That is a very rare position to be in.
Long time horizon.
I can lose every dollar, every collectible that I have and be fine in 6 months, which is sort of like nobody is in that position. So take anything that I say with lots of grains of salt, because I have nobody dependent on me. I don't have any overhead on any of my businesses. So, and that's how I've structured things so that I can sort of build out these collections and make lots of angel investments and take these huge risks, because, if a combination of Abraham Lincoln, Triceratops, and 3 startups that I invested in work out, we're cheersing in Miami in a year. So I think we'll probably be doing that anyways, but regardless, that's sort of how I look at it. I'm very risk on in terms of, everything I do, crypto, NFTs, alternative assets. And, I can't advocate any of it to anybody because it makes no sense to anybody other than me. And I think that, oftentimes I really don't like when people give like investment advice ever, anywhere, especially when it comes to collectibles, because it's not like a stock where, like, if I say Apple's a great company, like Apple's a great stock, you can see what it's worth.
Right.
Whereas if I say Triceratops is a good investment, then I need to be there at the finish line with you, or else you're not really gonna know. It's not the same. Or like this card that isn't publicly traded or anything is a good buy. So, I've always thought that it was ridiculous when I see card people or collectibles people giving investment advice. All I can give is like fun and insight into history, because that's where I think the value is, and like things of historical significance, and the rest is pretty much macro market speculation that I have no interest in taking part of.
Right. And in your case, is it, in some ways you've kind of just through curiosity built this diversification of categories and assets, but you certainly have some very niche allocations, and for those to pay off from a financial perspective, they need to become ideally less niche over time. And I think that's something that people across many collectible categories are kind of banking on at the moment. Is there anything in particular that has given you or that you look for to give you confidence when you're going into an asset that, 5 years, 10 years down the road, people are going to see things the way you see them?
Well, I think it depends on what my goal is, right? If my goal is to make money, which I'd assume is the root of that question, what I definitely look for is the long-term notoriety of said person. So are they a GOAT in their sport, or are they a GOAT in like society? Other than that, it's like much more risk heavy, as you see like 90%, probably higher, of any draft class in any sport fail. And a lot of public figures too. Public figures that are living are not safe investments. And as we've seen with people like Michael Jackson, even when they're dead, sometimes they're not safe. So, you have to go way back. That's why I like Lincoln and Washington. I'm pretty confident there. But even then, it's like Thomas Jefferson statues are getting removed from, famous places. Even with that said, for somebody like Jefferson, without getting into specifics, I think that, the historical value of having wrote things like the Declaration of Independence hold value regardless. Whereas, I don't think the same applies for a pop song if they do something terrible. And this isn't 200 years removed. But yeah, so those are a lot of things that I think about. Long-term safety of said person, if it's a person on a card. And then if it's not a person on a card, like I'll give you an example. I was looking at a 1911 Titanic card from the year before it sunk. That's an example of something where it's more about the product, and that was out of like a cigarette box or something like that. But yeah, I think a lot of it is also do I know the people who are buyers of this kind of stuff? I think that's an underrated aspect. Like, you have to picture the sale when you're buying it, if you ever intend on selling it. So I know for any historical thing that I buy, I have a personal Rolodex of 100 people that would buy it for more than what I paid for it, because I make good buys. And I know that from a lot of research. So I think having some sort of an idea of that, like, do you know there are card shows in your area that you would go to if you ever wanted to sell the thing? Having things like that in your back pocket, I think, is important for any purchase.
And what's interesting too is, obviously you are indeed by nature very risk on, just by being in categories that are speculative like this, where there aren't, underlying cash flows that you can point to, like for Apple, and say, like, you can get to a valuation, right? But what's interesting, what you described is, within that speculative bucket, which is absolutely risk on, there's another spectrum of risk, right? And you're kind of optimizing for lower risk within that high risk bucket, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I like risky things that are not, like, things that seem risky but I know are not actually risky. I just can't say that, because then that would be financial advice, or people would take it as that.
Right. Boilerplate, not financial advice, but helpful insights. So in the sports collectible world, what are some of the kind of niches or categories or things you're seeing right now that maybe people don't have their finger on the pulse of just yet?
Things in collectibles. I mean, look, I think there are some things that just don't make any sense, right? And that's what I'm looking for. Like, I'll just explain my Abraham Lincoln investment just for clarity's sake. I was looking at Zion Williamson National Treasures RPAs. I think Zion's a superstar, and I think he will be when he's healthy. This was even before his injuries. So, that's just the thought process going in. But you could buy 5 Abraham Lincoln graded and signed documents for 1 Zion Williamson mass-produced RPA. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Because I remember when, things like that didn't make sense either. Like when Wiggins was more than Michael Jordan, or, things like that. And this is an entire separate industry where there's a finite and decreasing amount every single year, because A, some are getting lost, and B, a lot of these companies are now taking these historical documents and cutting them up to put them on cards. So it's a very finite supply that's decreasing every year. And I want to own as many as possible, because I think that ratio is ridiculous.
But let me ask you this. Lincoln versus Zion down in the low post. Who do you got?
Dude, Abe was tall. He was like 6'5". Yeah. I don't think basketball was invented by then, but in 1865, when he was assassinated. But I think, maybe James Naismith was inspired by Abraham Lincoln's height in the post.
Height and athletic prowess, yeah. So you had an interesting kind of acquisition, if you will, of an asset that most people aren't going to be able to get in kind of the primary way that they used to. A key ticket that you managed to get your hands on, physical ticket, in an increasingly digital world. You want to give us a little rundown on that?
Yeah, I mean, the story is crazy. So my boy, who used to be involved in the ticket space, so he had a little bit of insight into how we could do this. But So MSG put out a statement before Steph Curry's game in Madison Square Garden last week, as of recording this, where he broke the all-time record, beat Ray Allen. Ray Allen was there. It was a huge scene. Probably the second most significant game of Steph Curry's career, ticket-wise, second to his debut game, just by nature of there being so few tickets, because Madison Square Garden put out a statement that they were not going to be printing any physical tickets, right? So my friend we got seats. We found out that we had to do it through Ticketmaster, because Ticketmaster was the only physical box office inside Madison Square Garden. We knew that they still had a ticket printer because somebody had gotten tickets printed to a previous game this season. So we got digital tickets on Ticketmaster, went 2 hours early to the game, brought a broken phone because we found out that if you bring a broken phone and show it to them and you have no way of accessing your tickets, they have no choice but to print them for you. So we did that 2 hours before the game, showed them a cracked, broken old iPhone that my friend brought, and said, they were like, well, why couldn't you print it on the other phone? And we had to say, well, one of us is leaving early. We're walking around. We really can't do anything about this. And they printed them on the spot for us. So it was legal bank robbery.
And there won't be.
And nobody else got them. Nobody.
What do you think the total pop of paper tickets from that game was?
Under 10.
Ooh.
Under 10.
And so let that be a lesson to everybody that, you know, some assets you have to kind of take destiny into your own hand and kind of manifest them yourself. They don't get pulled from packs or you know, show up readily available. It takes a little extra legwork.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that too is other people tried it and it didn't work. It was because we were 2 hours early and found the right person at the Ticketmaster booth at the right time. And then on top of that, for anybody else that got them, the ushers are instructed to rip them in half because that's what you do at the Garden when they're physical tickets. The usher rips them. So there were some ripped ones on eBay, but because we went through the suite entrance, they did not rip our tickets. And that's how they were able to stay in mint condition. So they'll be getting signed by Steph soon, and then off to PSA.
Yeah, get those preserved, and it'll be quite the artifact. I mean, that's really one of the more memorable, certainly regular season NBA moments that I can think of in the last several years. So it's congratulations, it's well done.
Thanks. It was funny, man. It was funny, and I will mention too that was all like a partnership with TickPick. And shout out to them for understanding because I had to pitch TickPick on getting tickets through Ticketmaster through them. And they understood why, and they were willing to do it anyways. So shout out to them because the get-in price at the Garden was $600 for the way top.
Yeah.
So it was nuts. Most expensive game in MSG history, period.
Which even that alone, that fact alone, without even getting into what happened at the game, is kind of a landmark moment in itself.
3 times as expensive as last year's Knicks-Hawks playoffs.
It's pretty incredible.
Same.
I mean, do you think, is there room in the ticket world digitally as collectibles in the same way, or is it just untenable?
Absolutely not. And the reason is because they're all in mint condition and everybody has them.
Yeah, there's no way to, and especially there's no depletion. So there's just no way other than some sort of artificial scarcity, which
the pop at MSG is going to be PSA 10, 18,000 for every game.
Yeah, grading certainly kind of out the window there, but it does. There are challenges that the digital world presents in terms of collectibles. Obviously, there's tremendous interest around NFTs right now, but there are some pitfalls in kind of the way of artificial scarcity, and it seems like you are one to favor any kind of sort of naturally arising scarcity that you can find.
Yeah, when it comes to games and things like that, for sure. But like, I have my own NFT project around my podcast where there's one NFT for every episode, and it's directly tied. And there's physical utility and digital utility to every person who owns a mic in perpetuity. So like, we just sent out 45 packages of graded Roman coins and vintage currency and sports cards. And I drew the mic so everybody has one of one art pieces. And this is just like one of our drops that we did for everybody who for everybody who holds one of these mics. So, and those were, I charged 0.05 ETH. So at the bottom, those were like 150 each. So everybody made their money back double immediately just on the assets. But yeah, so obviously things like that, when you can find them, are incredible. But when it comes to games and traditional memorabilia, I don't see it.
And you've on the topic of the NFT and kind of what you're doing around that, you're really kind of fostering in some ways a community and introducing collectibles to that. Obviously, you've built massive followings with Hoops Nation. How much room do you think there is for the traditional sports fan, and how much interest is there in kind of joining and being introduced to the collectible community? Is that something that you're seeing happening more?
Yeah, I am, especially on TikTok. Like I posted this one video of Wilt Chamberlain signed check, and it got like 1 million views or whatever. And they all the comments were like, "That's only $500." Like, what? Doesn't make any sense. Or like I showed a Usain Bolt ticket that I bought for $300. It was a signed Olympic ticket, PSA graded of Usain Bolt. And I think people are realizing that they spend money on stupid stuff. And I think that that's where collectibles win, because it doesn't disappear. It doesn't dissipate. It's not like a pair of sneakers, which I used to love and still do, by the way. I still spend money on sneakers, but I buy them used now because I am okay with, because I know what's going to happen to them. I might as well just fast track the process and put the rest of the money into other stuff, especially for like really nice sneakers. But, I think that the possibility of appreciation while being able to, quote unquote, use it is huge. And, there's some stuff that I'm working on that'll probably drop Q1 to 2 next year that I think will change high-end collectibles. If you have me back on, then I'll be able to tell you more about it. But perfect. Yeah, there's a lot that's going to happen in 2022 and 2023. I wouldn't be in the space from a content perspective if I didn't believe that the audience is going to be a lot bigger.
Right. It's funny you mentioned the sneaker thing. I'm a sneaker guy too, and it's just hard to undead stock certain pairs. So just cutting out that step and being able to throw it right on foot without worrying about the monetary implications is pretty nice.
Dude, it's so nice. I bought a pair of LeBron 12 Prisms that are normally $500 for $50 yesterday, my size. And I could barely tell that they were worn. There was like a little bit of schmutz on the laces that I'll rub off. And I don't have to think about it. I'll wear it on the subway. I don't care. It's like that. That is what they were made for. Unlike, other stuff like, dinosaur fossils and video games were meant to be played, but still, I have friends who have millions of dollars of dead stock sneakers in like a separate warehouse and stuff like that. I get it. I get that. Honestly, because I feel that way, it makes yours more valuable if you keep them dead stock.
Right.
It's just they take up so much space. On like a sports card, you can fit. That's why I love small things. And even like Lincoln and Washington, I can fit it all in a small safe. Whereas, sneakers, you can only fit so many in a New York City apartment.
You're preaching to the choir. I only have 2 feet, and storage space is at a premium. So the sneaker acquisition has definitely slowed in recent years, and it feels good to get out from under the
keep all your dead stock. You
What's
keep
that?
all stock?
No. I have. I would say there's a portion of the collection that is kept dead stock and is kind of allocated, if you will, and there's a thesis there, but I'd say 90% do get on foot. But even knowing that that's the intention, it's still hard to put foot to pavement sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of buying one to wear and buying one to hold. I get that, but I can't imagine ever buying a shoe that I love and not wearing it. I can't do it, but I respect to the people who can. I also can't buy sports boxes and not open them. So I own no wax, none.
That's fair. And it's actually, it's a good application of fractional to be able to play on potential appreciation for whether it's game worn sneakers, whether it's really rare dead stock stuff, 1985 Jordans, whatever it may be, to kind of be able to get exposure to those trends without the storage, without the stress and all that. But before we go, I wanted to ask Buster, what is your grail asset that either you've been hunting for in the wild, real or not in existence, that you're just hoping to track down either this year or sometime in the future?
There are some, like something that I bought. My favorite purchase this month was I got an original Indiana Jones movie theater poster. It's perfect. I love that. I bought a Jurassic Park one too, and I'm looking for some more like cool original posters. Obviously, I want Star Wars Empire Strikes Back and original Sorcerer's Stone Harry Potter and all the originals. Some of them are harder to find than others, but stuff that I'm looking for right now, I'm looking, if anybody's listening who has one, I'm looking for a 50th anniversary lithograph, the ones that they made 100, they made 200 prints, and then they made one for every player. The Bill Russell one just sold for 90 grand. I'm looking for one of the mass versions, so one of the numbered to 100 versions. They sell for like 23 to like $35,000. I want to buy one of those. So if anybody has one or knows of one, let me know.
Yeah, if there are any motivated sellers out there, we have a buyer for you for sure, and we can vouch for them. So, Buster, thank you very much for joining us today. Very fun to hear your thoughts on the collectible space, the alt asset space, and what you're seeing these days. So appreciate it again, and look forward to seeing more from you in 2022.
Thank you for having me. Anytime. There's literally nothing that we both love talking about more than this stuff. So anytime.
Absolutely.